But what I want to touch on is, basically AI 101, AI adoption 101.
Mhm.
When is it good to use and when is it not? Welcome to the Data Nerd Podcast. I'm your host, Nisar Ahmed. Join me as we explore the inner data nerd inside all of us. Dive into the world of data alongside special guests who not only share their wealth of experience and knowledge, but also unveil what truly makes them data nerds. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a comment wherever you listen. And for all episodes, plus exclusive merch like the Data Nerd hat, head over to the datanerdpodcast.com. I'm excited to have Nico on our podcast today. Nico, welcome to the Data Nerd Podcast.
Thanks a lot for having me. Excited to have a fun conversation here.
Yeah, fun conversation. We've had these conversations um, personally, like at conferences or meetups or whatnot, and I thought this would be a good conversation a lot of times there's a lot of takeaways and good insights, and I think it's good to get this on a podcast so others can listen in and learn a few things from your experience as well.
It sounds great. Yeah, completely agree. It's funny. We have all these side conversations and then nobody else gets to hear them and then they're gone. But this way we can actually share it with the world and put some good content out there. So very good stuff.
Exactly, exactly. So just some an introduction, if I may, I'll give you a little introduction. If there's anything that I may miss, you can always add on to it. Um, but Nico Mann is the founder and CEO of Stratos Consulting, where he helps executives cut through the noise and gain control of their data. With 15 years of experience across biotech, pharma, manufacturing, and financial services, he's built the infrastructure and reporting systems leaders need to move fast and make clear decisions. So Nico is passionate about mentoring and sharing knowledge, and he's known for breaking down complex topics into clear, actionable insights that drive real business outcome. So that's one of the reasons I brought you on here, because I think just based on our conversations, the way you break things down is very, very clear and actionable. And I think there's a lot of insights that you can give based on your experience. And we're going to talk about, we're going to focus on AI today, right? And we're going to we're going back and forth about some topics. And I think this topic obviously is a hot topic, AI. But what I want to touch on is, basically AI 101, AI adoption 101.
Mhm.
When is it good to use and when is it not? Because j- putting AI on everything may or may not work, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. Um, but before we get into that, and I have asked you this previously on a video that I put out on LinkedIn and TikTok or whatnot about, are you a data nerd? But I would like to ask you that formally here on the podcast as well. So are you a data nerd? And if so, tell me when you realized you were one.
Yes, and I'll be curious to see if I still have the same answers to what I gave you before. But
Yeah.
for me, to give a little background, my degree was in finance and information systems, and I was in a lot of technical coding classes. And I would go through all of the details and start coding. And I actually failed my computer science exam or one of my exams, and I was just devastated. And I thought, well, I have no business being in this industry or this space, really frustrated. And then I ended up finding this first job in consulting, which so much of it was on financial planning and how do you take data and help companies inform their forecasts and their future. And that really stood out for me. And I started to see, oh, this is something I'm actually good at. I could understand how data was actually being used, how it fed into downstream applications, and ultimately how it made people's jobs easier. And so I saw that and said, oh, this is actually something I'm good at. No, I don't have to be this deep technical coder in so many ways, other than maybe SQL and Python and some of these other softwares. But I saw that as, oh, people are getting value out of this because of the work that I'm actually doing, because it is making their jobs easier. And that's where I started to get so much more into data and said, well, how do we take a lot of these complex subjects, break it down into think of a repeatable task, a process flow, and then that way people are spending their time on what they were actually hired for, where they have very specific skill sets that they can then help inform other parts of the business instead of spending all their time manipulating data, using Excel to get what they need, and just getting frustrated for things that really aren't their skill sets. And so for me and then ultimately our team being able to help people out and you see people moment for, oh wow, I don't need to do all of this manual work,
Mm.
that got me more and more excited. And then as I progressed and have other people be excited about this, started to get more into coaching and mentoring. And then I saw, oh, this is something I'm actually good at and resonates with people. So it's been, like you said, 15 years now. So it's something I'm still very,
That,
very much interested in for sure.
that's awesome. My takeaway from that was you realized that you were good at solving problems, right?
Yeah.
And so I think when people think about some of these roles, they're like, do I have to be technical? But really, if you're able to solve a problem, that's essentially what that's the value, right? That's why we use technology. Essentially, it's not just for the sake of using technology. You have a problem, you have you provide a solution, and if you're able to get that solution, regardless of the resources you use or what knowledge you have, that's essentially what it boils down to at the end of the day, does it not?
It absolutely is. And that's why when we look at for our team and as we grow our team and the culture that we're building here at Stratos, so much of it is around that ability to problem solve. It doesn't mean, oh, you're an expert at Snowflake or Databricks or any of these other technologies, because if you're just a specialist and that's all you know, what I've found is it becomes very hard for people to take that and translate it to other platforms, other tools, other business problems. But when you actually take the reverse approach and say, okay, give me a business problem and I can figure this out. I don't know necessarily what technology is going to solve it, but I bet if I figure out what needs to be done, I can then plug in certain technology, pull in more technical people to be able to figure that out. And that's where the value comes from because so much of what I've seen throughout my career, and I'm guilty of this too, because I was in a delivery side for so many years, I think, oh yeah, this is what they want. This is what people want. And I get excited about this little technical thing I'm working on. And you spend weeks doing that. And then you're like, well, wait, this isn't what they didn't want this at all. I just spent so much time doing
You
that.
don't want
When,
to, yeah, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself to say these are the only tools that we can use. You want
right.
you basically want to explore it with a clean slate and say, okay, what tools can I use to solve the problem, right? And this is interesting because this is where the AI question comes in, right? So
Yes.
AI is what everyone's talking about now, okay? And everyone's saying you could improve productivity or, make gains, just adopt or use AI, right? But based on my initial conversations with you, um, my feeling is that what you're saying is AI is a good, definitely something that could be beneficial, but it's not one size fits all type of deal, right?
Right.
There are times where AI can help you, and can't. So how do you figure that out? Do you have to like do you have to ask yourself a question first to before you start using AI? And how do you know whether AI will be the solution that best solves the problem for you?
Yeah, it feels like here's the challenge.
Mm,
People are taking AI as a whole and saying, all right, throw AI at every single problem we have in the company and see if something sticks. And that's actually going to solve the problem. When the experience we've seen is if you take a step back and approach this like you do with any other business problem, you need to understand that problem at its core before you can throw a technology, be it AI or anything else at it in the first place. And so this goes back to it feels like because people don't want to be left behind, they're saying, okay, AI, we're going to throw all this money at it. You guys go figure something out. And that'll work for some people who have really strong teams who are problem solvers are going to say, okay, great, I'm going to go use AI to figure out some of these things. But for the vast population, be it on the data side, anyone working in the business, that's never going to be their main focus because they have so many other things that they need to work on in the first place. So where the value where we've started to see is, well, let's look at this very similarly to what companies have done for years. And we're going to break down this business process. We're going to see where are the bottlenecks, what's causing those bottlenecks, who is involved in all these processes, and then say, okay, great. Is there a technical solution for this? AI could very well be that solution or part of that, but it doesn't necessarily mean because I throw AI at something and I throw an LLM or any of the major ones that are out there today, it's magically going to make it better,
Mm,
especially when it comes to data. Because think about for all the years that you've ever launched a dashboard or a new report, you
mm.
had one chance to build strong trust with the people who are consuming that data. If you launch it and they start to see, wait, these numbers are wrong, and then they see it again, and you're like, well, okay, well, let me go fix that. And then it's again and again. They're going to go back to their old ways of what they've done before, be it in Excel, they use their reporting portals, whatever else they're getting their data. And that was very frustrating for people because they had one shot to build trust and they lost it. And so AI is very similar in a lot of ways in that as people start using it, it's like, oh, this is great. It's spitting out all this information for me. I don't need to go look for it. But as soon as you start seeing those numbers as incorrect, you're going to start losing trust with the people who are using it. Or even worse, they are going to trust it and those numbers are wrong. And then when
Yeah.
people ask them, well, where did you get that information from? Well, the AI chatbot told it to me. Oh, okay. Well, we have a real problem here because it's given us the wrong information. So I think it's transformed from, all right, we're going to do due diligence, figure this out, build a good product for this to solve the challenge. And we're going the reverse and saying, just throw AI at everything and see what sticks. But in the data world, that's a very, very concerning thing when you're trying to build trust with people.
That's true because there's no appetite for risk when it comes to data, right? Like you need to like the numbers have to be whether you're using AI or not, right? If I'm doing it the old way where I'm creating the reports or dashboards and I'm presenting numbers, I audit the numbers. I make sure they're
Right.
correct. That's a part of that process. And the reason I do that is because the moment I present something to my stakeholders and they see that the numbers are not correct, they're not going to trust my work. That ruins my reputation. So, what I'm hearing is AI can make mistakes. And so, is the solution to that keeping the human in the loop, or is the solution teaching humans how to properly leverage AI and use it because not every just because you have AI doesn't mean you know how to use it. Or is it a combination of both?
It's absolutely both. And there's probably deeper layers to it as well. But
Mm.
so much of it is, you're right. People are being thrown into, oh, well, you suddenly have to start using AI. But wait, we're not going to train you on it at all. So go figure it out. And this is something I've learned throughout my technical career too, is most people in the business are not as technical as you think. Even for people you think would be able to use Excel, say in a finance job, which is a pretty heavy thing. Some people are just okay users at Excel. And then you take it into other departments, be it on the sales, commercial, R&D, whatever it is. Not everyone's even Excel gurus. And now you're expecting them to suddenly learn a new technology on their own without any direction and with very few guardrails. That becomes incredibly challenging. So I think to your point, if you actually have people who are assigned as be it power users or subject matter experts who are going to say, hey, we're going to pilot some of these things within each of these teams and start to build trust and get people involved, then that becomes a lot more engaging, a lot more valuable. When people say just go figure stuff out, that becomes really frustrating for people because they have enough going on in their day job. They're not going to spend other time learning something that no one's giving it any clear direction. There's no goals tied to them. There's no performance metrics. So why should they even bother in the first place? And so this isn't me to be saying, oh, AI is not great. No, it's fantastic. I use it every single day for different things in my job, and other members of our team do as well. But it's progressively getting people bought in and sold on that idea. And the other thing too, so I talked to a lot of people in the pharmaceutical and biotech space, a highly regulated, compliance, secure industry. And so there's certainly a lot of concern around security and how people have access to information. And so what I've seen with a lot of these companies, they'll establish a governance council, AI governance. Okay, great. They did that for the first 3 months. And then the next 3 months is okay, progressively rolling out something like AI notes in Zoom. Okay, great. Now we have that. And then it seems to stop because while a lot of the products that are out there are building in AI workflows or other AI components into that, they're very risk averse to roll them out because nobody wants to take on that risk and say, oh, well, I was the one who made that decision. Now suddenly you have a data breach as well, too. And I'm not saying that's happening all the time, but I can understand people's concern around that. And I have a question for you. I mean, given that you're now in the more focused on the cyber, the security space, some of the reporting going on there, I mean, has that come up as an issue for you guys as well?
I think the adoption is slower right now. I don't think it's fully like it's been fully embraced, and I think that's a trend across all industries, really. I think there's still a lot that we can do with AI, and we haven't really uncovered or scoped out the true potential, right? And I think that goes to your point where some people don't know how to, or maybe are afraid of the risk, right?
Yes.
But then I'm like, how do we solve that? How do we solve that problem? How do we make people, how do we enable people to be comfortable using AI? How do they get the training? Because I feel like, I don't know, maybe there aren't enough experts out there.
Oh, there haven't you been on LinkedIn? There's a lot of experts.
Well, at AI, there's a lot. Yes, on LinkedIn, there's a lot of experts, right? But how are those experts getting their content?
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing
They're
for, oh,
probably
go ahead.
leveraging AI to get their content and then
Right, right.
regurgitating that to say like, I know AI, this is how you should use it, and this is what ChatGPT told me to use, right?
And I think that's where I have some frustration because I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs across the data space, people with much larger companies, and so many of them are talking about, well, Nico, just throw AI on your content or throw it on your website, and you're suddenly going to have a lot more leads. I'm saying, well, yeah, we're using AI for our clients, but that's not what I think is the right approach to saying this is going to solve all your problems. So I personally do not want to do that because I know at the core so much of the data that needs to be brought together to be able to support some of these AI initiatives. And that's what we've been doing for our clients and not going AI first. It's more of, okay, let's address these core data issues that you're facing. Great. Now here's opportunities to layer in AI to make people's jobs more efficient or maybe cut out a data engineer, whatever it may be. But we're not necessarily starting with AI first and everything. And to your point though, on the content on LinkedIn, yeah, I think a lot of that noise is coming from because everyone's just hyping each other up to focus on AI. It feeds the algorithm and everyone seems to be excited about that. And then other people are like, what am I doing? I'm getting left behind here. Let's throw some money at this AI thing. Okay, 6 months goes by, spent a ton of money, nothing came of it. And so I think we're seeing a lot of that over the last year, probably another year as well too, before it starts to then say, okay, here are really good use cases for different areas of the business as well.
Granted, I'm not saying there aren't experts out there. There are some very good content creators on
Oh
AI,
yeah.
and I follow them, and I actually probably learn a lot about AI from them on LinkedIn, right? I use LinkedIn as like to upskill and learn about
Oh
AI,
yeah. Mhm.
and following the right people will allow you to do that. Um, I think to your point, it's not just about AI is good and use it. What makes it beneficial is they're giving you exactly like the plan. This is how you do it,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
These are the steps, and here's the actionable items to take. That's the stuff that will help people. It's not just I think we're past that point where we have to convince people that they have to use AI. At least that's my opinion. I think
Mhm.
most people are accepting the fact that AI is the reality and we have to use it. Now it's a matter of teaching them how to do it. And that's the stuff. That's what we need content about is like, how do we do this?
Exactly. And it's interesting what you said there too around everyone feels like they need to use AI. And in so many ways, I do feel because I get so much of my content from LinkedIn as well too, and that's how I upskill. And there's a lot of good creators and articles out there. And in some ways, though, I feel like we're in an echo chamber with so much of that because I'll get on calls with people in finance, within commercial, within research, and they're not doing anything with AI. They're asking me, well, what are the use cases? And I'll talk about some of them. And they're things that you and I would think are fairly basic, even just using something like ChatGPT for some, I don't know, iterations or working through some ideations of things. And a lot of these people are not even using AI, be it for their own personal life or at work. So this goes back to we're up here in so many ways for a lot of the content ideas on LinkedIn, but we got to realize so many people have so many other things going on in their jobs. Like they're not seeing the bombardment of AI that you and I might be as well too. And that's where I think the education part is so much more important than people are making it because you need to get to those people who are across the organization who really need the value, but they need to be trained, they need to be educated. Otherwise, it's never going to happen.
Nico, you opened up this topic, which is really near and dear to my heart, education, right? So I work in, I have a full-time job. I don't that my full-time job is not education, but part-time
Right.
I'm an educator, right? I teach data analytics, certification courses, part-time. And I'm passionate about that, right? It's something that, to be honest, enables me, the teaching enables me to learn. I
Hmm.
learn to teach, essentially. So some people, okay, for me, I feel like I don't have to be an expert to teach it. I just have to know enough to provide value.
Yes.
And so what I'm doing, and I'll tell you my transformation with AI
Hmm.
when it comes to in education. Okay. So I've been teaching since 2018. Okay, data analytics. Okay, and this is analytics 101 for people who are working professionals and they want to get into analytics. I teach them about SQL, Excel, Tableau, basics of an analytics project, a
Hmm.
workflow, how to solve problems and use cases, all of that, right? AI was never a part of that curriculum before. Now, over the last few years, um, y- you have to use AI because that's just what's happening in industry. So
Oh,
now I started to think like, how do I now revise my curriculum or what I teach in my material to now incorporate AI. So
hmm.
now what I do is how I used to do it traditionally. I still keep that content, but now I say, okay, now how do I do the same thing I did before, but now leverage AI and kind of look at the differences and I show them, okay, this is me doing it manually. This is me using
Ah,
AI. What's the differences? Which ones do you like better? And then when you show it to them, then they see the benefit and they can see how it's being used. And also for me, every time I do it, I learn something because AI is generative. It's
yep. Yep.
not going to give me the same answer every time. So it does open up the possibility, like every time I'm doing this class and I have a use case, I'm going to get a different answer each time live on the session. I don't know which hole I'm going to go into and what it's going to lead to, but that's part
Sure.
of the fun and right? And that's part of the learning journey. So I feel that to for people to learn, they just have to start trying it and
Yes.
doing it.
Yes.
And that's how I learn. I don't know if that's how you learn,
Hmm.
but I think that's a lot of people like, I don't know how to do it, so I'm not going to try. But I think that's what's capping their their uh, their learning abilities.
Exactly. And I think you nailed it though, where it's being able to try it has become easier than probably any other technology out there because you can see the competition that's out there. They have free subscriptions. So many people are putting content out there. You're putting content out there and for how to help people get through this. So it's the best time ever to even just try it out. It's not like you're going to break anything. You shouldn't be too worried about it and just get out of your head and, oh, well, you don't need to go read 10 research articles on how AI works and the nuances. Just go try it out and you'll soon realize that there are some use cases around that too. So I like your approach that you're doing. And
Yeah.
do you have an example of something that said, okay, here's what we were doing before and now here's how we're doing AI? I'm curious what you're doing in that space and just, what's working well
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's suppose we have a use case, okay, where you have a stakeholder and they're saying, okay, um, we have certain segments of our consumers, and we're seeing a decrease in segment B, okay,
Hmm.
and we're given the data, and it's our job to analyze it. Traditionally, what would we do? Okay, it doesn't matter what tool you're using. I'll just give Excel as an example, okay,
Yeah.
because most people know Excel. You create a pivot table, you get certain counts, metrics, whatever measures you think are applicable for it. You would look at the differences, and then you would say, oh, this is kind of the trend I'm seeing, and maybe um, this segment is falling because of certain regions lower sales, and
Hmm.
maybe we need to dive deeper there. Okay. Now, what I do then, I take that data and I feed it into AI and I say, okay, can you analyze this for me? This is the situation. This is what I'm looking for. I want to see why this segment is going down. what ends up happening is it gives you ideas that may not have thought about. Like the
Right.
whole, like I think the job of analytics really is about asking the right questions and brainstorming and then
Hmm.
trying to figure out the solutions. If AI can give you additional ideas and brainstorming ideas that you may not have thought of on your own, why would that not help?
Right.
Right? And so that's a perfect example. And I'm not saying everything that they suggest to me is correct, because I have had instances where they suggested something, and then I don't just take it as is. I have to
Yeah.
then validate it. And then when I went to validate it, I'm like, actually, this is not what I'm seeing.
Hmm.
But it was still it was still a lead. It was still something that I had to explore, and there were others that were actually good, right? So
Hmm.
I think using it as, I don't know, it's like your partner, your
Yeah.
another coworker that you're running ideas by, especially if you're working remote, you don't have somebody at the side of your desk that you can run it by. You're like, okay, let me work with AI and get me ideas and run them through. And still, you still need to leverage your knowledge and experience to try to get that answer. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing, a use case. And I think a lot of people can probably do a similar type of activity in their work as well.
Oh yeah. Hmm. That example hits really close for me because that's what I use it for on a regular basis is some sort of coach or colleague to iterate through so many different things because in my job, so many of the conversations that I have are with data sets, with industries that I may not necessarily have deep subject matter expertise in. Sure, I know enough because of my experience over the years, but there's always something I don't know. And so I use this as a way to just give me a bunch of information and form ideas on how I might approach a conversation. And what I've found is even if it's little tidbits that stand out to me, I'll hear that on a call with somebody and I'll know what that is because now AI has done some prep for me to get me in that right mindset. And I'm not saying it's perfect for every single situation, but it at least has given me, oh, here's 10 things that could come up in this conversation and here's what these kind of subject areas focus on. And that makes me more knowledgeable. AI, a lot of people talk about AI replacing people. Well, yeah, it might if your job is just to do one thing and you can't think outside of that one thing and it's a very manual effort and that's it. But no, that using the power of your mind coupled with what AI can help provide you as that partner, as that colleague, should bring your job up here in the way that you execute and make you that much more valuable. So I love that use case.
That's true. It will make you more valuable because it will now allow you to focus on less of that mundane manual tasks and maybe more of the strategic side, or maybe allow you to free up more time to problem solve and come up
Yep.
with solutions, right? So that's really what it is. It's not about, I think the fear that people have about losing their jobs is because they're so used to doing things a certain way for so many years.
Yes.
They may not know how to do things a different way, and they fear that if they don't need to do that anymore, they won't know what to do now.
Exactly.
Part of that
Exactly.
adoption is not just upskilling, it's changing the way you've done things. I think that is how you really get benefit out of AI, right? Is you have to really like reshift the way or refocus the way you've done things traditionally.
And let me give you a cringe word of change management that everyone just hates to hear.
Ah,
That's been the problem for years. I mean, forget AI. When the internet came on, or when you suddenly have databases and reporting platforms that can do all of these things more automatically, and you don't have to print out a piece of paper and find something and then fax it to somebody. I mean, it's always been that challenge where people think, oh, I can throw technology at this problem and people are just magically going to adopt it. No, that so rarely works because people do not care about that as much as you or I might. So, adoption, change management, how you approach getting people on board for this, that goes back to training. And not everyone learns the same way either. You can't throw a one size fits all course at everyone. It has to be this group of people learns a little more hands on. This group needs to see some use cases. This group reads better, whatever it is. and meet people at their level to be able to do that. It doesn't always need to be one-on-one, but at least you can create cohorts around how you approach training within an organization to get people on board. And that's why even starting smaller with prototypes, with POCs, within smaller teams, and then you can show the value within that team. You proved out it's secure, it's compliant. And then you have somebody who's strategic and says, great, I'm going to take that and move it to other sectors of the organization and show the value there as well, too, instead of one size fits all. You guys figure it out. We got to be on AI or else, you're fired. I mean, there are some companies talking like that, which is absolutely crazy to me.
Yeah, that's true. I think the fear mongering doesn't help.
No,
It doesn't
it
help
does
at all.
not.
I think you got to look at the ROI, right? But how do you measure ROI with AI adoption?
Oh, I think I I compare it to no different than AI, or excuse me, to ROI for any other application, any other technology. You need to build a business case to begin with. And this goes back to the what we started talking about originally. People aren't building business cases. They're saying, here's some money, here's some tech that we've said, hey, this is the AI in the company, go figure stuff out. Well, that's not necessarily going to lead to ROI because you haven't built a case for what you expect to get from all of that investment. So, in the same situation, you got to say, what are we looking to replace? Are we saving hours? Are we driving revenue? Are we cutting costs for software, for people, any other things? Okay, and here's how we're going to do it using AI. It's going to fix these processes. It's going to automate workflows. It's going to make people more effective in their job. And then you start to create that calculation. Well, here's the expected or estimated ROI. And then it becomes much easier to track to that. But if you never put anything out there, how could people possibly be upset at the end when you don't have anything because they don't know what they're working towards in the first place?
Yeah, no, you make a fair point. I think the way you measure ROI should not change regardless of what AI is just another tool. You're still
Right.
measuring ROI the same way you have historically. Yeah, that's a good.
Completely agree. And that's where companies, this is just my opinion here, but companies, you see these mass layoffs at these big companies. Oh, because we're becoming an AI first company. I look at that as an excuse for them to just reorg. And it's no different than any other time they come up with insert excuse here to do layoffs, to reorg, and then
I
we're going to do something else. I mean, that's just business
I
as usual to
couldn't
me.
agree more. I feel like they're masking the real reason and just putting AI on top of it. They would have
Hmm.
done these layoffs anyways because
Right.
the business wasn't performing. And now they're
Yes,
just saying it gives a positive spin on the layoffs.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So that they're for the shareholders and people don't lose trust. I mean, it's all spin. It's all
Yeah,
spin.
that's true. That's true. But okay, so we talked about how we can measure ROI and like why it's important and benefits and whatnot. Okay, but in what situations do we determine it's not a good use case to use AI? Based on your experience, projects you've worked on, or whatnot, like,
Mhm.
can you give some examples?
Yeah, let's stay within the data realm since that's kind of the data nerd podcast, right? So
Yeah.
I think of it as a lot of companies talk about, all right, well, we're just going to throw AI on top of our unstructured data, and it's going to suddenly start coming up with all of these insights and reports that we need instead of using a data warehouse, instead of using a reporting platform to accomplish that. Don't get me wrong, there are some use cases, especially when you think about textual data and all of these PDFs and you want to read across and summarize that information. Great use cases because that's very easy to prototype. You can throw that into an LLM and see the results. But when you start talking about compliant, regulated, data that needs to be 100% accurate and needs to be structured. If that's not structured in the first place, AI is not going to magically solve for that. And so that's where people say, "All right, well, yeah, just throw that into AI. It's going to do it." But wait, we have basic problems like master data management. Hey, product A over here is called product B. How is AI ever going to know that those are the same? I mean, sometimes it can get some fuzzy matching going and it's right, but that's
Yeah.
generally not how it works. And you're going to rely on something that you don't know the intricacies of how it's working to prepare your most accurate financial reports or your sales reports or things for the board. That is surprising to me. And I think what people are finding is they're starting to progress on those journeys. And then they say, oh, wait, this data isn't actually accurate. So now we
Yeah.
need to get the data right first, which people are starting to see now. And then you can layer on AI once it's more structured.
It's true. They're not ready to use AI, and I think that would be the case, like the data being structured and ready to use. whether using AI or any other technology, right? Let's just stay within the realm of business intelligence or
Yeah.
whatever tool you're using, like Tableau, for example. If you're creating a Tableau dashboard and data it sits on is not structured properly, what do you need? Like, is it going to work? It's not going to just, Tableau is not just going to automatically create uh, a report for you with good data that's meaningful if the data that it sits on is not structured properly. That's part of the job. Even if the data source you're tapping into is not structured, Tableau has the tools
Mhm.
to structure it for you to get it in a format that's ready for Tableau to use, right? It still has like that work has to be done on the back end. It's not AI is not
Absolutely.
the solution. And I think that's the case not just with AI, but any tool that you use.
And let's stick with your example of Tableau there too,
Yeah.
because let's say the data is not structured right, and that means you have to go fix your data issues behind the scenes. But where AI could play into is iterations of different visualization types, or thinking about, oh, well, how can I show this data in different ways and quickly iterating and spinning those up instead of you actually having to build those in Tableau from scratch every time. And then you're looking at that. Yeah, the data may not be right. They're like, oh, okay, great. Now I have some iterations to work with. I can show the business some different concepts instead of having to build it from scratch every time. So it's some of the creativity and ideation that's
Yes.
helpful, and then pair it with the data once it's accurate.
The brainstorming, the idea, the creative aspect. That's correct. But can AI help you provide recommendations on how to structure the data? I haven't tried it myself. I don't know if you have.
That's a good question. I have tried it a little bit with certain very specific applications where you know the data models are a little more predefined. So think about like in a CRM platform
Yeah.
or an ERP. And so I have asked it some questions around that, and it will give some results, but it's still it's a little too high level and not specific enough. That's where we are working on some of that here. How do we speed up if you think about the data modeling process and recommendations on how to link the data? The challenge though is still, yeah, we can come up with say 80% of it and AI can help us get it there. But so much of it is still talking to the business and how they think about their KPIs, how they want to create those relationships. And then AI can help speed up some of the coding that goes into that and how you build out the data model. But I have yet to find, I think we'll eventually get there, but I can't say AI will replace data modeling and how to structure your data in the first place. It can help, but the knowledge of having data architects is still incredibly valuable, but they can use AI to help speed up how they do their processes as well.
Yeah, because it's not just one size fits all, right? Each case is very specific, and you have to know the intricacies of the business as well, right?
And it's no different than think about technologists who like to say, hey, I know everything because I've done this for another industry before. So I'm just going to go build this out for you. And then you come back to the business after months and months and say, oh, here's what I built because of this is my knowledge of what your business is. And they're like, well, you know nothing about my business. We don't do any of this
Yeah,
way. So it's
yeah,
the same problem telling AI to go to do the same thing. Although AI will do it a lot faster, I think, and could get back at least you could iterate through that more instead of whereas before it took months and months in a waterfall methodology and then you spent a bunch of money on something you weren't happy with. So I think there's a balance, but the point being is people still need to be very involved in the process so long as they have subject matter expertise and they're setting the strategy and the stage for how you're actually going to define your KPIs and metrics and inform the business. And then AI can help speed up that delivery process of that data work.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Um, Good. No, I mean, listen, this has been a great topic, great discussion. And I hope to have future discussions with you, whether it's on a future podcast
Oh yeah.
or future meetups. We've met up here in New York City and elsewhere wherever conferences are held. So hope to continue our relationship going forward. Um, Before I end, though, I want to end with a few rapid fire questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What is the first word that comes to mind when you hear AI?
For me, it's creativity and ideation.
Yeah, that goes along the lines of exactly what, we've been talking about.
Mhm.
Um, what's one AI tool you can't live without?
I mean, I use ChatGPT constantly. So There are other ones that are out there, and but that has been my go-to in general, and I've trained it on so many different things about what I work on, and yeah, incredibly valuable.
I mean, that's probably the most popular one. I think, and then Google's up there too, Gemini, right?
Yep, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. Um, what's one task you'll never trust AI to do?
That's a that is a good one. I don't know if I have one. That's never. It doesn't mean I'm doing it
Yeah,
yet,
yeah,
but even on, and I know I'm sidetracking a little bit, but even on things like accounting and finance, so many of these tools are building AI into the workflows to be able to handle matching of finances and whatnot there and reporting. So even some of those things, I would say anything that involve. Okay, here's something I would say. I won't say never, but it's not there yet. Anything with very sensitive data, like patient data or PHI, anything that
yeah.
needs to be protected, unless that's in a very secure data environment that's using a model within the environment and you're not exposed to the outside, I would be very, very risk averse to putting any super compliant data like that into AI just yet.
Wait, on that topic, so I have a friend who's a doctor, okay? And I was talking to him about AI, and he's saying that there are AI tools that are customized for medical professionals that are
Mhm.
trained, their models are trained to, with that in mind, that will provide specific guidance to them. And he uses them and he likes them. So
And
I think
oh,
even
sorry.
there are solutions. I don't, but again, I'm not a medical professional, so I can't really speak towards the effectiveness of it.
And I'll restate mine a little bit because I completely agree. I think for the medical use cases, putting in information is incredibly valuable to get feedback and ideas on what's going on. I personally wouldn't put in something like social security number, that person's
Right.
name, any kind of identifiers to link that information back to that person. But I'm all for the medical field using that as well too. So that's a great use case though.
Yeah, yeah. How about self-driving?
Self-driving, I think
Comfortable
they're
with
still
that?
figuring out self-driving. And then as somebody who can't drive and is waiting for because of my vision, so I'm
Yeah.
waiting for self-driving, I will not be an early adopter, although I did take the Waymo in San Francisco, but
I have to say though, I've a friend of mine has the full self-driving in the Tesla.
Mhm.
I drove it from Long Island to Brooklyn, which is
Oh
about
yeah.
an hour drive,
Mhm.
okay? On full self-drive the whole way. And for those who don't know, driving in New York is not a simple like no traffic situation.
Yep.
It got me there comfortably. Um, I was convinced after that. I'm like, this has come a long way. And I've tried it maybe a couple years before that, and I wasn't comfortable, but now
Yeah,
it
yeah.
improved so much.
That's amazing. Oh, and it certainly will be game changer at some point. I will wait
No,
until it's there.
and that's a sentiment for many people as well. I think is because the risk there is much higher.
Yes. Good point. Good
Right?
point.
When you're working with data, yeah, there's some risk there, but like you're willing to take some of that risk. But
Right.
with driving, you don't want to do you don't want to even think about
Yeah,
that.
no, no. It's
Yeah.
a fair point.
Yeah. Let me do one more rapid fire. Um, in 10 years, will AI create more jobs than it replaces?
Hmm.
10 years. I'm not talking about near term. I'm talking, a little bit further down.
I think it is going to. I'm
Think
not
about
sure
it
if it
this
will
way.
create more jobs.
Think
Yeah.
about it this way. When the
Yeah.
internet came out, okay,
Yep. Yep.
what happened? Some jobs were replaced, but
Sure.
if you look 10 years past, there were a lot of jobs that exist that were created as a result of the internet.
True. Oh, yeah. I look at it as AI is going to create new segments of jobs, and I think you're going to see a lot more independent contractors than we are today, and people creating more flexibility in their work schedules by using AI because they know how to manage different components of AI and do jobs more effectively, more efficient. But I do see major sectors changing. You think about robotics, manufacturing, anything that's a very labor intensive workforce where robots could do that 10 years down the road. Yeah, I mean they're already doing that in some manufacturing plants across Europe too. So 10 years could eliminate a lot of those jobs. And the biggest thing will be, I know we're talking about AI education,
Mm.
getting those people who will then have to be in a new workforce educated on AI and how they can actually use it in different ways. So in my mind, I look at an opportunity to, yeah, it's going to replace jobs, but then upskill us into other areas to do more and be more productive.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just going to change the landscape of the types of jobs that are out there as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, Nico, this has been great. Let people know how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn. So you can find me, Nicholas Mann, on LinkedIn at Stratos Consulting. That's probably the biggest thing. And shoot me a message, connect. Always happy to talk with other people in the data community, be it if it's technical, business, just have conversations like this. Yeah, happy to connect. And Nisar, always nice chatting with you, and appreciate you having me on the podcast. This is awesome.
Same here, Nico. We'll definitely keep in touch and continue with these conversations. I appreciate you coming on the Data Nerd podcast.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a rating or review. It really helps more data nerds discover the show. You can find all episodes, plus exclusive merch like the Data Nerd hat, and more at thedatanerdpodcast.com. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and embrace your inner data nerd.